Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. So alongside update 1.54 came the World Series Finals special event. Now if you've never been around for the other World Series Finals special events, it's basically a recreation of the World Finals events in single player with leaderboards and a chance for you guys to earn a few credits. Unfortunately though, I do feel Polyphony's dropped the ball with them this year, but anyway, we're going to go ahead and check them out for some fairly easy credits. So as you can see, you want to head up to this tab right here, experience the World Finals races with this special event. As you see, once you load it up, you will have the Manufacturers Cup and the Nations Cup. You will earn 1,000,000 credits for each of them, and on average they take anywhere from 12 to 14 minutes. So the first is at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. As you can see, it's 6 lap, 13 cars in total, a rolling start. All racing tyres are usable, but it's irrelevant. It's a Group 3 race, and as you can see, you will get awarded all the 1st, 3rd and 5th credits in one go if you win it. Now in terms of the main rival cars, it is all of the World Series Finals cars. As for the rest of the settings, BOP/tuning prohibited is off. It's an event specified car. Car settings are allowed. Mechanical damage is off. Shortcut penalties are off. And wall collision penalties are off. Now the second race is a 2-lap race around the Nürburgring 24 hours. Once again, 13 cars. Exact same setup here and exact same reward tiers as well. Now, of course, the car for this one is the Red Bull X 2019 competition. And once again, we do have the event specified cars, allowed car settings, mechanical damage off, and shortcut penalties off. This one is definitely the better of the two. Now, of course, as always for these, you'll be getting 1,000,000 credits for each of these since the rewards do stack. And of course, there is the options for leaderboards as well. So if you want to go for the top 10, you can go ahead and do that, or just go ahead and beat your friends. So let's go into event number 1 then. This is the Spa event with the Group 3 race cars. Now, just note there are only 13 cars in total, so 12 AI, 13 including yourself, over a 6-lap race. And unfortunately, this is where it's going to fall apart. There's no tyre wear, there's no fuel usage, and unfortunately, Polyphony don't even take advantage of the weather system here. Now this event right here is pretty much a copy paste of the same one that we had 2 years ago, and thankfully with that one there was weather enabled and it was great fun. Unfortunately this time around though, Polyphony haven't enabled any type of strategy whatsoever. With tyre and fuel off as well as no weather coming in, it's pretty dull. And to make up for the lack of AI on the track, they've just gone ahead and made the gaps bigger between all of the cars. So you'll have to just pick them off one by one, group by group, and work your way to the front. And that's exactly what we're going to do. As you can see, by the end of lap 1, we're already about to move into 10th place, and we're going to make relatively short work here of this Corvette up in front of us. Coming out of the corner, we do get a better drive out of it, and then that is it. Job done, and the Corvette is overtaken, and we do manage to get ourselves inside the top 10. Now, as you can see, this is the issue I am talking about, where it's just group to group to group, a huge gap, just to artificially make the event feel that much more difficult due to the lack of AI. However, we get on to lap 2, and we're going to move up shortly into P9. As you can see, just taking it down the inside of the Audi R8 here, getting that one done and dusted nice and easy. And it wouldn't be long before we'd pick the Ferrari off just a little bit down the road. As you can see, he did make it a little bit harder than it should have been, as we do end up on the grass, keeping it nice and clean though and getting around the outside of the Ferrari. Now we do have a few more cars to pick off, and we're going to get 2 in 1 here. A bit of late braking down the inside. We did overshoot it just slightly, but we did thankfully manage to keep that position. And this was the first major grouping of cars, a little bit closer these ones before we have a bit of a gap to the front of the field. The next 2 cars that we were going to pick off would be the BRZ, which we did manage to get past quite easy, and then we did actually end up with a fairly nice on-track battle with the NSX, at least for a few corners anyway. That car incredible out of the corners and pretty fast through them as well, so we did end up kind of stuck behind it for a little while, but thankfully we did end up with a decent slip, and we would eventually make short work of the NSX. In a move very similar to what we performed on the Corvette, that's what's going to happen to the NSX here, as we do get the slip and then just get that move done and dusted. And it wouldn't be long before we catch up to the main lead pack. As you can see, we've got the RX Vision, the M6 Sprint, and of course the GR Supra in this pack. Now we would go around the outside of the RX pretty easily, and once again with the M6 we just pick that one off down the inside. However, the Supra would take a little bit longer to catch up to, and we would have to do a little bit of work to get that move done and dusted. Going around the outside here, taking it to the curbs and just managing to squeeze the car in to take that lead. And unfortunately that will pretty much be it for the rest of the race, as we'd just typically drive around on our own until the 6 laps were done and dusted. Unfortunately, without that weather there was nothing to really spice up this race, and it did end up a pretty dull affair in the end, as we crossed the line there with just over 14 minutes on the clock, a 14:03.194. Now, in terms of this event, I'm going to go ahead and just give you my thoughts and opinions on it quite quickly before we move into event number 2. This is absolutely dire. I don't know what it is with Polyphony and their events in 2024, but they've been dropping off a cliff like just no tomorrow. It's pathetic. Honestly, every single year, especially when it comes to these special events, we pretty much get the same one. However, sometimes it's reversed with the Group 3s at the Nordschleife and the, competitions at Spa. However, we have pretty much a copy-paste here of 2022, and unfortunately, it's absolutely terrible. The fact that they didn't put any kind of tyre wear on or any fuel usage or take advantage of the weather at Spa just absolutely blows my mind. They could have made this a very, very enjoyable special event. Now, a lot of players would have probably forgot in 2022 they did this same event but with rain, so why they didn't just go and copy that when most players would have forgotten that was even a thing, I really don't understand. Polyphony massively dropped the ball with this one. So let's go into event number 2 then, and thankfully things are going to be a little bit better here. I do feel like this was a much more balanced event, and thankfully you're not going to be driving around on your own for the majority of it. Once again, it's the same setup, so there's no tyre, fuel or weather strategy unfortunately, which could have been a dull affair if it wasn't for the competition just being much better here. So of course we're in the fan car here, the X2019, and it is absolutely ridiculous. It's a downforce car, so the faster you go, the more performance you're going to get. And it really is weird to get used to it in the early stages, so I did struggle a little bit at first. Now of course, once again, just like the last event, we are picking them off one by one, but thankfully because we do run on the Nordschleife itself, it is much more enjoyable just due to the fact that it is very tight through there, more challenging, and it does feel like you're actually presented with some type of on-track battle. It's all about picking your moments and taking advantage of the ridiculous slipstream of these things, and that's exactly what the front runners are going to be doing here, for me at least. Now with the slipstream being so powerful, this is exactly what the leaders of my event were doing. There was 3 of them that were just constantly slipping each other around the track, allowing them to build up an incredibly big lead. And as you can see here, that is just how powerful the slipstream is. You can come from way back to outbraking them in a matter of seconds. It's insane, and that is honestly why it's so enjoyable. The Nordschleife portion of the track in these cars is incredibly quick. It's honestly mind-blowing, and it does make for some fantastic racing. Just be aware to watch out for the curbs. So as per usual, just pick them off one by one. You'll probably make your way through the grid fairly quickly in the early stages, at least I did. Inside half a lap I'd already got myself up into P5 and then also get myself into P4 on the exact same lap. However, after that there is a fair gap, as mentioned, to the rest of the field just due to them slipping each other through the track. So we're currently running in P4, and if we take a look at the board you can see just how close together the 3 front runners are. There's an 8-second gap, and since we're not running in any slip and we're kind of running on our own, it's all about being as fast as possible to make up as much time as possible. Again, as soon as they hit the straight and start slipping each other and battling it out, as you can see here, they absolutely disappeared into the night. However, thankfully it would break up after a while, and that did allow me to start picking them off one by one. First of all, we managed to move up into P3 with a 2-second gap to the rest of the field. We'll then try it around the outside to get ourselves into P2. And at first it just wouldn't pull off, and we did end up in a pretty annoying situation where we ended up on the Nordschleife still in P3 and still having to overtake another car before we even get to that first place. And considering how difficult it is to overtake here, which you're seeing on screen, it can get extremely frustrating. So try and pick your moments without risking your entire race by throwing yourself into the barrier. Eventually we'll get ourselves into P2 and start chasing down P1. As you can see, the Brazilian just up ahead, and once again we're going to use this slip to our advantage. So we're just going to follow him nice and closely and just wait for our moment to just jump it, get ourselves in the lead, and then try and disappear off into the distance. So once again we're going to try and outbrake him, take it around the outside, get back on the inside and try and get this position done. We're side by side at this point. We still haven't managed to take that lead, so we're going to try and outbrake him once again, and this time we do manage to get that job done. Now, honestly, I'd love to say that we just disappeared off into the distance, but that wasn't the case. The group packed up once again, and with how powerful the slipstream is, they were just hanging on like no tomorrow. I just could not break free. As you can see, we're heading up towards the carousel section here, and it's incredibly tricky with these high downforce cars. Just the high banking really throws them off. We did manage to get a bit of a gap, thankfully, but they did start battling each other. However, as you can see, we do end up with 4 cars on the carousel at the same time, which is something I just did not expect. Now, through this next section, I'm relatively strong here, so I'm hoping that I can just start breaking free, get out of the slip, and just give myself some breathing room. Of course, with this only being 2 laps, it had to be job done on this lap. Thankfully, we would have the pace to manage to break that slip at this point, but of course there was that huge long straight coming up where of course the slipstream would come into effect. So thankfully I did manage to build up enough of a lead that slipstream just wasn't enough for P2, and I would be left pretty much on my own at this point to be able to take a, fair enough win in the end. It wasn't too difficult once we got into the lead, but definitely we had to hang on a little bit there. We took first place, another gold medal in a time of 13 minutes 11.319. So my thoughts and opinions on this one, I do feel like this is absolutely by a country mile the best of the 2 events. I do feel like the first one was a huge disappointment and a lot of missed potential, and whilst it is a bit of a copy paste with the settings and no strategy with this same event here, I do feel like I can forgive it. I feel like a lot of the enjoyment comes from the, on-track action, the slipstreaming, the battling. Of course, throwing the Red Bull around the Nordschleife is absolutely mind-bendingly fast at times. It really is a joy to do. So I do feel like this one is just much more competitive, much more enjoyable, and overall is the better time. Now, of course, both of these events together, you are looking at 2 million credits in around about under half an hour, which is just pretty decent. Again, this was the most expensive post-launch update we've ever had, and 2 million credits is nothing to really turn your nose up at. So I'd say they're both worth it for the credits alone. Anyway, that's going to be the end of this video. A massive thank you to all of my channel members listed on screen now. I hope you have a fantastic start to your weekend. I will be back a little bit later on with the weekly challenges. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Peace.